Hello friends, I am Vishnu Lok Bihari Srivastava. Today I am going to deliver the second part of my lecture, Wordsworth's Theory of Poetic Diction. In my previous lecture, I had laid emphasis on the very precepts of Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction and the genesis of his theory of poetic diction. On these but twin issues, my previous lecture was confined. In course of my discussion, I had come to the conclusion that Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction is the outcome of his stern opposition to the 18th century poetic diction, which he opposed on various grounds. Firstly, he was of the opinion that the 18th century poetry was confined to the depiction of the problem of a particular section of society, and the interest of the last section of society was largely ignored. And in this way, Wordsworth feared that poetry might be confined to a narrow circle. The range of poetry will be limited, and this might act adversely for the welfare of poetry, because he realized that unless poetry does have a mass support, unless a larger section of society is brought within the ambit of poetry, it cannot achieve perfection. The growing popularity of novel in the 18th century is itself a clear evidence of the importance of the language of common man within the framework of a form of art. The practitioners of the novels deliberately use the language of the common man and their own problem. The problem of the masses were discussed in their own language, and that's the reason why the novels of the period emerged great success. Wordsworth too was of the opinion that the poets must come out from their narrow circle and to look into the problem of the people belonging to a different strata of society, and that's why only their poetry acquired a universal shape and color, and it will have a mass appeal. Secondly, he opposed 18th century poetic diction because it made a categorization of language and didn't allow the language of the common people to venture into the territory of poetry. Actually, the 18th century poetry treated poetry as a specific form of art for which a specific vocabulary was required, which Wordsworth vehemently opposed. He was of the opinion that that practice might once again drag poetry out of the reach of the common people, and it might be suicidal for it. It might not add anything substantial to the development of poetry, and thus Wordsworth craved for plain language for threefold reason. Firstly, he was of the opinion that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility, and this spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings can only be carried out through a plain language, because if the poet indulged in making a selection in the choice of words, the ideas might not persist for a longer period, and therefore Wordsworth feared that it might communicate the ideas in a proper way. So the spontaneous flow of ideas can be properly carried out in a plain language, and that's why he preferred this option. Secondly, he wanted to ensure the greater participation of people representing widely different regions of society in order to widen the boundary of poetry and to give it a universal coloring or universal appeal. And thirdly, and most importantly, he wanted to purge artificiality out of poetry. That was the significant contribution which Wordsworth has made through his theory of poetic diction, because he was fed up with artificiality, ornamentation, and the use of figurative language, which was repeatedly practiced by the 18th century poets, and which has dragged poetry away from the reach of the common people. So Wordsworth wanted to bring it back into the mainstream. Wordsworth wanted to bring common people back into the fold of poetry, and for that he realized that the language of the common people must be practiced. Otherwise, they cannot be associated within the framework of poetry. So, by putting forward his theory that the language of poetry and the language of prose should be identical, or insisting that there neither is nor can be essentially a difference between the language of poetry and the language of prose, Wordsworth wanted to communicate that artificiality in poetry should be removed, and the poetry should purged out of all these ornamentation and figurative language, and that can only help poetry achieve perfection, which is beneficial for the betterment of poetry, for the enrichment of poetry. Today I will pay emphasis on the criticism of Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction, passed by Indian as well as the Western critics. Actually, Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction was even put to the acid test by his fellow romantic poet Shelley. If we go through the poetry of Shelley, we will find that Shelley has written his poetry with a greater height, and the height at which he wrote his poetry required a specific vocabulary, or complex words, or obscurity and vagueness were noticed in the poetry of Shelley because of the height at which he wrote poetry. Actually, he was the most philosophical of all the romantic poets, and he has expressed, or he has given vent to the Platonic ideas into his poetry. So, in order to keep pace with the poetry of Shelley, one must equip itself with the Platonic ontology and Greek philosophy. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to understand the poetry of Shelley. Actually, the Platonic transcendental ideas are very difficult to understand, and definitely very difficult to understand Plato's idea that real is ideal and ideal is real. And because besides that, there is an amalgamation of various influences which include philosophical, ontological, and mythological. They are coined together, and that has made Shelley's poetry a very difficult reading, for which complex verse is required, and it is and that's the reason it's very difficult to express the ideas which Shelley has come out through in his poetry in a plain language. Another severe jolt to Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction was given by his friend Coleridge. Actually, Wordsworth has supplied his theory of poetic diction in his book Lyrical Ballads in collaboration with Wordsworth in the year 1800. But after 1700 of the publication of Lyrical Ballads, Coleridge published his book Biographia Literaria, in which he vehemently opposed Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction on three grounds. Firstly, he insisted that the same word is used in poetry as well as in prose, but the difference lies in the arrangement of words. the words are arranged in a different way in poetry and in prose, and that makes a striking difference between the two form of art, because poetry requires is based on meter. It's a metrical composition, and metrical composition require different arrangement of words. So the same words which are used in poetry and in sport acquire a different shape and color, and it makes a difference between the two. Secondly, Coleridge was of the opinion that Wordsworth came out with the idea that there should not be essential difference between the language of poetry and the language of prose, but Wordsworth has not made it almost clear what after all does he mean by the language of the common people, because the language of common people consists of the language of tradesman, the lawyer, or the rickshaw puller, or the poet. So which of these sections, the language of which of these sections should be taken into consideration, or which will be placed into the category of a common language? It is still not made clear by Wordsworth, because the language of common man differs from man to man and profession to profession. So Wordsworth has still not made clear which the language of which section of society or the common people should be taken as the language of the common masses. Thirdly, Coleridge was of the opinion that plain language can be acceptable for the depiction of the sensuous ideas, but with regard to the depiction of the complex philosophical issues, plain language will not serve the purpose. It has got its obvious limitations, and at that particular juncture, Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction doesn't carry any meaning or carry any weight. Even T.S. Eliot was of the opinion that the poetical composition requires a critical labor. In his essay Tradition and Individual Talent, Eliot has made it clear that two persons work simultaneously inside the psyche of an individual, one who suffers and one who indulges in the creation. So